The following is a presentation from the 9th Annual Humanities Days at Montgomery College. The Human in Humanities, Understanding Ourselves and Others. This year we offered 30 remote events via Zoom. To learn more about Humanities Days at Montgomery College and to access other program recordings, please go to this website.
Okay, so welcome to the 9th Annual Humanities Day at Montgomery College. My name is Stacy Ford. My co-host is Paul Miller. We will be your host for today's event, Inclusion Through Intentional Design. I am the Accessible Technology Coordinator and also the coordinator for the Universal Design Center.
And I am Dr. Paul Miller, and I am the Professional Development Director here for the college and the Office of E-Learning, Innovation, and Teaching Excellence. And Stacy will lead the presentation today. And as a Universal Design Coordinator, I'm thrilled that she is presenting this, and I'm glad that you're with us today.
Okay, so our, next slide, please. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is some of the topics and scenarios. What is inclusive design? Inclusive design principles we're going to go over. Also look at the learning environment and what intentional design looks like in a learning environment. Also going through a scenario about applying for a job, and also we're going to have a fun activity today about designing, and that is going to be through, it's called Yes But or Yes And. Okay, so the first thing before we even get into the session, I'd like just to reflect a little bit on what kind of things have you experienced that made you feel like you were included or belonged. So what does it look like in your environments? So how we're going to do this today is you are welcome to type it in the chat, or if you would raise your hand, or you could just put yourself off on mute, and if you would like to say it out loud. So what experience have made you feel like you were included or belong? It could be social, it could be at the college. Would anybody like to start? And I'll actually start then, get some ideas. Like, yes, please, Chapel. So like at meetings, when somebody acknowledges like what I've said and actually tells me that it has value or merit and it's recognized, that's something that makes me feel like I belong in that setting and in that meeting.
Stacy, there's some great responses in the chat box. There's one a group assignment, which is a great way to feel like you belong in class. People bothering to know my name, so actually using somebody's name within the context is another way, and being invited into a conversation.
All the great examples I'm seeing in the chat. Does anybody would like to add, or other ones that they would like to say out loud? There's another one when my boss acknowledges my hard work and dedication. Okay, so thank you so much for contributing. It's really great to kind of see like the different areas where people are noticing this, whether if it's like anything from a conversation, just those little things about knowing your name, how to pronounce your name, and also just being included, like being invited to an event, just that powerful, like asking somebody else to kind of join them and be included in an experience. Seeing pronouns, being greeted by people around campus. Absolutely. Great examples, thank you. So we're going to go to the next section, and we're going to talk a little bit about inclusive design. So what is inclusive design? It's the design that considers the full range of human diversity with respect to the ability, language, culture, gender, age, and other forms of just human difference. It goes beyond accessibility and focuses on design that allows diversity to thrive. Now, there's 3 dimensions of inclusive design. It recognizes the It is recognition of the diversity and the uniqueness of what diversity looks like, and also the tools and the inclusive processes that think about in the environments and your experiences. And the last is in the broader beneficial impact. So how it impacts beyond that. An inclusive designer, I'm going to consider us all almost inclusive designers at this time. Inclusive designer is aware of the context and impact of our decision and strive to have an impact beyond that's intended the benefit of the design. So whatever designed, it actually impacts and benefits even more. It goes beyond that. Inclusive design should trigger a cycle of inclusion, leverage the curb cut effect, which I'll go over in a second, and recognize the interconnectedness of the users and their systems. Think about their systems, their environments, what their surroundings are. So we're going to go to the next one and talk about curb cut effect. Okay. So the curb cut effect. Can somebody tell me, like, what do you think the purpose is? What is the main purpose of a curb cut? And if you look where the orange part is, it goes up at a slope onto the sidewalk. You put it in the chat, or you could just unmute yourself. Yep, getting off the sidewalk. But what do you think it was designed for? Who do you think it was designed for? Which specific group of people were they designed for? Absolutely. So wheelchair users. So persons with disabilities. So they would be able to get up the ramp. But also when that was designed, who else did it benefit? Has anybody had to use the curb cut before? And why? Anybody trying to even just, a suitcase, deliveries, bicycles? Absolutely. So the curb cut and baby strollers? Absolutely. Great answers. And it benefits more than, it's just a phenomena. So it's like something that was designed for a smaller group of people, and it benefits a lot more. Skateboarders. Beautiful. Now we're going to go over a couple of other different examples, and just to kind of start in different environments. So go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to go back to curb cuts real quick.
Oh, God.
So if anybody's on the cell phone, I'll describe the pictures a little bit. So when we design something, we could either design it reactively or we could design it proactively. There's pros and cons to each. So first, I have 4 pictures on the screen right now. The first picture in the top right corner is there is a ramp with a door, and the ramp is on the right side behind the door. The second one, there's a pole in the middle of the ramp. The third one, think of a crosswalk. There's a median in the middle, and there's no ramp on the median. And the last one on the bottom right is there is 2 steps, a ramp, it swings around to the left, and there's no bars to kind of help people from not falling off. What is everybody's thoughts is, do you think that these designs were reactive or proactive? Anybody reactive or proactive? Now the next question I have, reactive, absolutely. The next question is, does the designer understand the user's needs? And yes, they are real. So can anybody tell me what's going to happen if somebody tries using one of these designs? You're welcome to unmute yourself. Yep, they will fall down. They could hurt themselves. Now think about those other different user groups. So we have somebody with a stroller, somebody with deliveries, somebody with a wheelchair. They'll hurt themselves. Sorry, I'm just going to go through the chat again. It's a liability, absolutely. They won't have access. They know, and this is one specifically, they'll know they weren't valued. And that's actually a really important one that resonates with me, because I still remember when I used to work with disability services, and one student came up to me and they did not have access to that learning environment. And they said, real story, that they did not feel like they were included or thought about. It's cumbersome and creates frustration. Someone else said, absolutely. So just to I just want to kind of share with like these type of examples. They show the value of, and even the effect of how it makes people feel, how it makes people think about this design and that environment. It's very important in us to decide inclusively. Okay, so if we're going to go to the next slide. Yeah, usually nobody looks further beyond what is adjacent to their own project. Okay, now let's do something different. Talking about design, how about color and color contrast? So we have 4 different sets of colors and the contrast. Is any of these really difficult to read?
Red. The red one, yes. Red.
And does this, what happens if something has this kind of contrast and it's something that's crucial, something you absolutely have to do, like you have to have this done by 4 o'clock tomorrow, or you do not get your financial aid, or if you do not get this, you do not get registered for an event. So does color contrast matter?
Yes.
Now, here's another side effect. Remember the curb cut phenomena. So how about if you are outside with a cell phone and something has low contrast? Does that affect you in that situation? Can anybody think of another situation that color has an impact? Absolutely. Is someone colorblind? So the interesting one of the it's actually accessibility requirement is color contrast with color blindness. So let's say that we have an online form or a module that we're or a module that we are trying to take. What happens if I say, hey, click the green circle? Or do I say, click the green next button or something like that? So you have color and words. So it doesn't matter. Color alone is not the indicator to basically say it's like, this is a design principle. Yep. If the color is in red, if something is in red. So sometimes I will put it as red and strong. So it has 2 different indicators. Okay, next slide. And the next one is like, who has, just go on to Facebook or other social media and watch some videos. Let's say you're waiting for the next appointment and you're in a noisy place. Who has used captioning? Paul has his hand raised over here. Now, I am not deaf, but I use captioning all the time. I do have a little bit of a gap in my hearing. So one thing I use it for is to kind of fill in the blanks of what I actually can't hear. But what else can it be useful for? Anybody? Anna's right on the money. Sleeping baby, you don't want to wake up somebody that's else is in the house. Language. What was it? Okay, Paul's going really fast if you want to. That's funny. Yeah, I didn't think about that one, especially if you're eating and it's kind of noisy, like chips. Noisy airport weather maps. when learning a different language. Absolutely great answers, everybody. Next slide. Okay, now we're going to go into the digital realm. Now, what happens if somebody only has access to a mobile device? I've had students who actually had to write papers by dictating into their phone, and actually they're editing their paper on their phone. Now, what happens in this case where you have an online form and it is not mobile responsive? Has anybody experienced this so far? And do you think it has an effect on accomplishing a task? Has anybody been able to not accomplish a task because something wasn't mobile responsive? Yeah, it makes it difficult to use. Not everybody has access to computers. Absolutely. Now, sometimes what this could see, especially depending on what tools you use, it could be an online form, it could be a new type of technology to kind of engage either in a classroom or maybe like a team event. And what happens if it is not compatible? One of the accessibility criteria are actually if something is robust. And that's part of the POUR framework for the faculty that's been in those trainings before. If it's not, does not work with other different technologies, then is it effective? Yeah, if it's not compatible, you miss out on the content. Some people haven't had this experience yet. Yes, I could not see the full menu and select the right option of a form. Absolutely. And sometimes it's as simple as the submit button is hiding in the bottom corner out of sight, and you don't know, and you cannot actually submit something. And one of the other things that are related to this, what happens, have you ever completed a form and you didn't fill something out right, and it's not telling you exactly what is wrong, and you're searching to try to figure out what did I miss? How about that? That drives somebody crazy. Absolutely. Okay, next slide. Okay, so just so we're kind of on the same page, this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just to get our head wrapped around some of these items. And if there's any other forms of diversity that you could think of, please feel free to put it in the chat so you could also voice that out. And in this reference, some of the diversity is like age, generational, gender, based on religion, spirituality, disability, ability, national origin, ethnicity, race, and then also socioeconomic status. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, now what I'm going to talk about also is we have those types of diversities, but also, okay, nobody else added any other diversity in the chat. We're going to look at these inclusive design principles. And some of y'all might actually see some of these are actually familiar. If you've been in any universal design training or accessibility training, some of this actually has overlap and synergies with them. So in this framework, it has provide a comparable experience. So what does that mean? So can somebody accomplish the same task in a comparable way? One of the situations that are in the web environment are creating an alternate text version of a website, which for all legal intents and purposes is not usually a good idea, but it is not the comparable experience. So we do have a lot of things that we engage in with websites that does not translate into text, straight up text. So this is kind of what it means by a comparable experience. The second piece is to consider the situation. So I'm just going back to the next section. So when people use your deliverable or what you've created, can they use it in those different situations? Remember the cell phone color contrast in an outdoor setting. So can that deliverable still be used in those indoor versus outdoor? Can it be used in a noisy environment versus a quiet environment? The next portion is to give control to the user. Ensure people are in control of how they use the content. If they're able to access and interact with the content in their preferred way. So for example, in Blackboard, there is Blackboard Ally. And Blackboard Ally allows students to convert that material into a format that is more conducive to what their needs are. So let's say it is a text document. Blackboard Ally can turn this into an audio file that you could read. It can turn into an EPUB, or it can go into a web version, which it actually goes from different colors. So it's like black, it starts turning into blue, and the next line is blue. So you could actually transfer to that next line a little bit easier. So it turns into these different formats that can be used a little bit more easily by different user groups. And that also leads into offering choice. Consider providing different ways for people to complete tasks, especially those that are complex or non-standard. So as you can tell, it's like in these workshops, you could see, so there's options to complete the task. You can voice out loud our contributions, or we could actually place them into the chat. So this is what we mean by giving choice. Another principle is prioritizing the content, helping users focus on core tasks, features, and information by prioritizing them within the content and the layout. So has anybody been in a training or a course and says like, hey, this is the stuff that is absolutely mandatory and here's the stuff that is optional? So that's just like one example of having that prioritization. And then the last one is add value. Consider the value and features of how they improve the experience for users. So instead of it, what I could do, like in this training session, I could start throwing out a new tool every 10 minutes, and then you have to learn a new tool. So, but would that be valuable? Would it be valuable to constantly learning the new technology versus learning the content? Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we're going to this is a lot of talking. So once you could take yourself off mute and we could have a conversation, and also you're still welcome to type in chat. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what are the things in a learning environment that makes you feel included. So think about anything from the approach to the learning environment, like I gotta go to the campus, I gotta park, I gotta get into the building, versus I have to go to my room, I gotta log on to Zoom, I gotta set up these documents. So what are those things that need to be there to make it inclusive? What do you think? And I subdivide it into two different categories. You can think about it as like the environment that's around the student or around the instructor, and also the interactions between the different elements. Either it's between the tool, between the person, between person to person. What does that look like? So what needs to be there to make that environment inclusive? What kind of things could you include or do, or needs to be there? So I'm going to start up with one thing. The college, we actually test the technology to make sure that different user groups could actually use it. So can it be used with screen readers? Can it be used for people who cannot use mice? Is it the color contrast acceptable? So that's one thing. So inclusive technology that's been vetted and that we know that works for multiple users. Because if it doesn't, does that person still feel included if they can't use the technology?
So Stacy, I'm going to take one from the Macklin Tower perspective and the ways in which you can get into the Macklin Tower by going across the bridge through campus instead of walking up the stairs to get to the library.
Absolutely. Somebody in the chat also put like freedom from distractions, family members, pets, etc. Calm, quiet background, well-lit space. Remember, we're also making assumptions. So thinking about this might be from a remote area or remote learning environment. Now, how about the language that we use? Because we did mention about using proper pronouns and things like that. So now let's take it from, think of yourself as an inclusive designer. What could we design this environment to have, or mechanisms in place to make people feel more included? So how about in being a class, it's like, okay, let's everybody, let's put our pronouns in where you see our names. That's another way to design the learning environment. Some of the categories is age, race, nationality. How about users that may not be accustomed to using the technology? So how about when I did a training session, I opened up the session about a half hour early for a different group, and so we made sure the audio works, the technology works before actually engaging with that class or that training session. Okay, not bad. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Okay. Who has both providing content in multiple mediums? Jennifer, absolutely. So then you're giving preference in the learning environment of how to consume that content. Absolutely. So now, so a lot of these apply, we're going to a different scenario. How about who has applied for a job? Anybody? Raise your hand. Give me a thumbs up. So, okay, now here is a scenario for you. Okay. The job came up in the DC metro area to help promote your favorite cause. Now, here are some of the requirements for this job. The first thing is you have to have a desktop or a laptop to apply, because the online mechanism doesn't work with a mobile device. It keeps it super small. You can't read it. You can't click on it. Can't use it. Doesn't work. The next one is go to a different office location occasionally. So you have to go to different locations. The next one is you have to have a car and a valid driver's license. The next requirement, you have to has a statement about accommodations and if you needed to complete the application to request an accommodation. So what we're going to be looking at is two different buckets. What kind of things are inclusive? What kind of things are not inclusive? And then how can we make those things that are not inclusive, inclusive? So let's start off, what in this job statement is inclusive? What do you think? Does it affect age? Does it affect race? Does it affect disability? Very good. Mobility? So is mobility inclusive or exclusive or uninclusive?
I'll just unmute. One would have to have unfettered mobility with a car. One for this, one couldn't be visually impaired or disabled in a way that prevents you from driving a car or something like that.
Absolutely. Now, how can it be turned into something that is inclusive, though? How else can they accomplish that same task? And we're in the DC metro area.
Will require work from different locations or something like that. Would that be better?
They could work from different locations.
It does say go to different office locations, but maybe just get rid of the car and valid driver's license thing.
Yep, absolutely. That's one thing. The public transportation, Uber, any of those kind of things, Zoom, Metro vouchers. And since Susan brought forward socioeconomic, have to be able to even afford a car. So not even just for disability. They could provide transportation. And the accommodation statement is inclusive, but it was only for the application part. What about the other part? Sorry, I'm just trying to go through the chat real quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Now, okay, so we did look at some the office locations, the valid driver's license, accommodation statement. Absolutely. And you're going to notice like the visual things, the visual issues, they're a little bit easier to identify. But when you start going into the digital and the invisible, it starts getting a little bit more difficult for people to kind of be able to notice that. And that's usually across the board. It's actually a common thing that happens. How about that application process? What do you think? Is it something that that should be fixed, or is the accommodation good enough? And when you get an accommodation, just think about, okay, I cannot use this tool. I have to actually go to a person and say that I cannot use that tool. So how does that make me feel? And what kind of effect that can have on the effort people have to put towards to accomplish that task. Does it increase the effort?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Now, if you had a lot of tasks that you had to have increased effort to be put into it, how would that make you feel afterward? Absolutely, Lauren, like worried about being labeled as incapable. Concerns. And then sometimes what happens is because I have a lot of different groups we talk to about like in the disability community, is you get tired. People will get tired. They will just give up. If it's too much effort, it's not worth the effort they have. So there's a little bit of a story that is explained of like how about disability is like you have a set amount of energy. So you have a set amount of spoons. Each thing you do during the day takes a spoon. And once you're done for the day, you're done. So when something that is very like a job application, if it takes too many spoons, is it worth the effort that is expended? So just something to think about when you're designing something. How much effort does it take? Should provide content information for application process questions. Yes, companies should also pay for public transportation as an option for mobility issues. Usually it's not they won't pay for it, but they'll give out, they can give options. Very good. Okay, next slide. Oh, okay, so that was the same thing. Okay, next slide. Okay, and the last thing for today is we're going to do a little bit of an activity. So this activity, this is done as part of the design process. And the purpose of this exercise is to improve teamwork and learn to accept others' ideas and also build them as a team. Inclusion doesn't always stop at the deliverables or those environments, but it also is brought into the design process of creating something. So think about when we did like a group project, putting together an event, putting together a PowerPoint. How does those conversations go? So there are words that we use that can be inclusive and also that can exclude or invalidate like what we are trying to collaborate on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pretend we are designing a celebration. It could be any kind of celebration. It could be a birthday party. It could be an anniversary, something, whatever you choose to be. And it is more open-ended, so it could be in person or it could be digital. So what I'm going to do is start off with a statement, and then we are going to have a conversation and design this experience. But we're going to use a certain set of words to start off with. So the first statement, I'm going to say, we need to include an invitation. And Paul, do you want to help me with the second piece? So if we need to include an invitation, can you respond with yes, but? And the yes, but is used as not necessarily, it's a kind of block idea, kind of a blocks ideas. So let's just, can we just play just to see it, just what it would sound like? So we need to include an invitation.
Yes, but what information should be included?
I'm thinking that we need to include maybe a name and a date.
Yes, but what date format should we use?
Now, you can see how it's kind of gets more of like a defensive type of feel. But now let's switch the conversation to yes, and. We need to include an invitation.
Yes, and it should go out next week.
Absolutely. And it can be digital or it can be, and also a print version.
And it can go to everybody in the directory.
So can you see how it starts building on each other and it gives a little bit more of a positive vibe? So what we're going to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms for a few minutes. And what we're going to do is let's have that discussion and let's practice to see what that sounds like. So just to make it a little bit easier, and since we're not too short on time, actually a little bit on time, so we're going to be out for about 8 minutes. So just choose the first person to start, and then round robin, start off with the yes but, and then switch to the yes and see what kind of experience could you build off of that. Does anybody have any clarifying questions or need any other assistance of what the ask is once we go into the breakout rooms?
So we're using your example of you are designing a celebration and have to get the word out?
Yep.
Thanks.
So I'm going to copy and paste that into the chat so you still have it when you go out. Okay, sounds good. And then Paul is going to start the breakout rooms. And here we go. Okay, so here we go. Everybody's coming back.
Hey, Mr. Greg.
Okay, so what do you think? How did it go? Does anybody want to kind of like report out like how the experience went?
In our group, I found that it made me think of things that I wouldn't have thought about in terms of planning. That there was a lot more that I wouldn't have gone there from if I weren't trying to think of ands and buts.
Yes, I think from our group, someone said we should have pizza And then another person said, what if someone's allergic to pizza? So, there's allergies and sensitivities to think about. So that was something that was interesting, that, we're trying to think about what we'll have at our party to accommodate everybody. And also transportation. Maybe people want a carpool home. But it definitely was a different experience using and versus but.
And honestly, this is one of my favorite exercises, especially with working with like committees and volunteer groups, because we're all kind of there for the greater good. But like, how do we kind of get on the same page? And also, does anybody think it was valuable to like that design thinking in a group? Is it valuable to have a group, or is it just to do a party by yourself? What do you think about that?
Other people will think of things that you might not.
That is true. Absolutely. And somebody was mentioned about thinking about the options and details that would make the event inclusive. Oh, sorry, I'm blending all of them together. That make the event more inclusive, yeah. And the different considerations that we don't think about. So the value add for the different perspectives that are coming in. So maybe like somebody that does have the disability that has that perspective is like, okay, like I might be thinking about like, how do I get in the building? Can I actually eat the food? Am I gonna be able to is there an elevator to go on the floor where the bathroom is? Like some of the things that we like absolutely kind of need to consider that we may not, because we just kind of take for granted of that we're able or have access to these different things. Yeah, and it could probably go either way, but somebody thinks that it encourages people to participate. Absolutely. Now, here's one more consideration. Do you think, like in this design process, do you think it's linear, just from here to there? Or do you think it's circular, like it goes into like almost a cycle? What do you think? Now think about like, let's change the context. So let's say that we are creating a presentation. Okay, do we just completely do it and then it's done? Actually, somebody just said it's a cycle. Absolutely. The design process is very circular. Absolutely. Okay, so let me just go over to the next slide real quick. And okay, so before we end, we have 8 minutes left. Just going to take about like 2 or 3 minutes and just share with us just one takeaway that you got from this hour. Some of the experiences. One thing that you could that you're going to consider from now on, or something that resonated with you. What is just one thing that you took away from our hour together? You could unmute yourself. You could go ahead and just talk, or you could type it in the chat, whichever you like.
I guess I would think about pronouns a little bit more, and how I address people, and thinking a little bit more about what I'm going to say when I'm in a group, and to make sure I'm including everybody.
And in the chat, somebody's saying this, they're going to start using that exercise that we actually just did. An inclusive process will help to plan for inclusion. Mm-hmm. To look at wider perspectives, absolutely. Anything else? Even if it's was there a piece of diversity that you didn't consider before that you would now consider? Because even think about when you go into like the religion area, there's like what happens to reassumption of locations. Absolutely, somebody said in the chat. And even those locations is like Is there parking that can be reached? Like some locations, you might have to go across campus, and what happens if somebody cannot walk across campus or aged? And then let me go back to the religion thing. What happens if we plan something for a date that's a religious holiday? Is that inclusive towards a person of a certain religion? Okay, well, I'll give like 30 more seconds in the chat, and then we are going to wrap up. And I am going to put in the chat for us today the survey. If you would not mind, be so kind to complete the survey for us before at the end of the session, so that we can get some feedback. I'd be very grateful, and I would appreciate your time. Another big takeaway that I'm looking in the chat is that they learned in the PowerPoint is what to include upon when you're going to a party, such as invitation, food, transportations. Being a better listener, taking more time processing information that is received. Absolutely. And just having that, taking that time to listen, it definitely helps others feel included. It feels like that they're heard and being valued. Absolutely. Just going to share another link in the chat. If you would like to attend other sessions for this week for Humanity Days, please take a look and register for those sessions. And I just wanted to thank everybody for sharing this hour with us, and hope you have a wonderful day.